The night of the party was supposed to be perfect for my brother. His in-laws, the pinnacle of wealth and social standing, had flown in from out of town. Everything was arranged to impress them. Crystal glasses, polished silverware, a menu that cost more than my monthly rent, and a guest list that screamed status. My brother, always careful to present himself as flawless, had one secret. He had hidden me from them. Years of embarrassment, of being the awkward, less accomplished sibling, had made him fearful that I would somehow ruin his image. I wasn't angry at him, not entirely. I understood the fear, the pressure of living under the judgment of people who measured worth in bank accounts and designer labels. Still, hiding me felt like another subtle confirmation of the family hierarchy I had always despised. I lingered near the doorway, dressed in understated black, observing the glittering crowd, my heart a mixture of resentment, sadness, and curiosity. Hey, if you enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the bell. Your support means everything and helps me keep creating. Thank you so much. The room buzzed with polite laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft hum of a string quartet. My brother moved confidently from one conversation to the next, smiling in ways that felt rehearsed, practiced, calculated. I noticed his fiancée whispering something, then glance at me, her expression a mix of confusion and recognition, quickly masked by a professional smile. I had anticipated that someone might notice me eventually. After all, I wasn't invisible. But seeing that flicker of recognition in her eyes sparked a thrill I hadn't expected. The thrill wasn't about being seen. It was about finally stepping into a space where my presence had always been denied, where I could stand without apology or explanation. I could see my brother noticing too, his confident smile faltering slightly, a flicker of panic crossing his face before he caught it and forced it back into control. I realized then that tonight would not go the way he imagined. The careful choreography of his social ascent, the perfection he had worked so hard to maintain, was at risk of unraveling. And for the first time in years, I felt not fear, but a quiet, potent satisfaction. I stayed back, letting the conversations flow around me, feeling the tension in the room, hearing the subtle shifts in tone as whispers began to circle. Everyone was too polite to directly confront me, yet I could sense the recognition building like static electricity in the air. This was no longer just a party. It was a reckoning, and I was at the center of it, hidden in plain sight until the right moment. I caught my reflection in a mirror, steady, composed, and unashamed. Tonight, the hidden sibling, the one no one had taken seriously, would have her moment. I would step out of the shadows, and everything my brother had tried to control would face the light. The first wave of whispers began when I moved closer to the center of the party. At first, it was subtle, small, sideways glances between the guests, the faint tilt of a head, the barely audible murmurs. My brother, who had always been so meticulously in control, felt it immediately. I could see it in the way his eyes darted toward me, the way his hand tightened around his champagne glass. For years, he had carefully curated the image of a perfect, accomplished family. I was the shadow he had tried to hide, the reminder of what he feared: imperfection, unpredictability, reality. As I walked past the long table where his in-laws were seated, the recognition hit them simultaneously. His fiancée froze mid-laugh, the corners of her mouth twitching as she struggled to reconcile my presence with the pristine story she had been told. I could see the question in their eyes. Who is she? Why is she here? I smiled faintly and kept walking, letting the tension build naturally. By the time I reached the buffet, a small group had begun to whisper openly. Isn't that his sister?" Someone asked, voice low but loud enough to carry. My brother's father-in-law adjusted his cufflinks, his brow furrowed, scanning me like an unexpected variable in a carefully calculated equation. My brother's face went pale, the mask of confidence slipping ever so slightly. I moved as if I belonged. I nodded politely to people I didn't know, laughed softly at jokes I didn't find funny, all the while aware of the shifting energy. Guests who had assumed I was invisible were now acutely conscious of my presence. Every step I took carried the weight of years of being ignored, dismissed, and underestimated. Each step was deliberate, a reminder that I was no longer the forgotten sibling. Then, the turning point came. One of the in-laws, the one my brother had been most eager to impress, stood and approached me, extending a hand. "You are his sister?" she asked, her voice a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. I smiled and nodded. "Yes," I said calmly, "and I've been looking forward to meeting all of you." Her polite smile faltered as she processed my composure, my confidence, the unmistakable aura of someone who had finally claimed her space. By now, the whispers had grown into murmurs that rippled across the room. People began noticing the subtle hints of wealth, status, and success I had carefully concealed over the years. The designer watch on my wrist, the understated but luxurious clutch in my hand, the quiet confidence in my posture. I wasn't just his sister. I was a force he had never anticipated. The final blow to his carefully constructed image came when I finally joined the main seating area. Everyone turned toward me, the room holding its collective breath. I sat with calm authority, acknowledging greetings with a nod or a brief smile. My brother's carefully rehearsed demeanor faltered under the scrutiny of his guests, his fiancée, and even his parents. They were seeing him not as the polished man he had presented himself to be, but as someone unprepared for the reality of a sister who had grown into her own power while he had hidden behind pretense. And then it happened. The whispers turned into quiet conversations, guests making discreet comments about my accomplishments, my independence, my poise. Eyes that had ignored me for years now regarded me with interest, respect, even admiration. My brother tried to interject, tried to redirect attention, but it was too late. The tide had turned. I had arrived not just physically, but socially, emotionally, and unmistakably. By the end of the night, the room was charged with a new awareness. My presence had rewritten the story of that party, and my brother could no longer control the narrative. I hadn't come to compete, to prove anything to him, but the effect was undeniable. I had been underestimated, dismissed, and hidden, but now, fully visible, I had the upper hand. The balance had shifted, and there was no turning back. The room fell silent when my brother's fiancée finally spoke. I didn't realize. Her voice trailed off, eyes wide. My brother's face was pale, jaw tight, fumbling for words that wouldn't come. I smiled faintly, letting the silence stretch, each second magnifying the truth. I had grown into someone they couldn't dismiss. Guests began complimenting me quietly, nodding in recognition of the poise, confidence, and success I carried effortlessly. My brother realized too late that I was no longer the shadow he could control. That night, I didn't just attend the party. I claimed my place, unshakable and undeniable.